My name is Cuthbert. I'm 32 years old, and I work as a software consultant. Most people would describe me as the reliable one in my family. The one who always keeps his head down, does what's expected, and never rocks the boat. That was my mistake for way too long. When I decided to propose to my girlfriend Haley last spring, I thought my family would be thrilled. Haley Winter is everything you could want in a partner. She's 30, independent, elegant, and has this fierce loyalty that I've never experienced before. She's also the first person who ever made me feel like I deserved to be someone's first choice. I planned the proposal perfectly. A quiet evening at our favorite restaurant, nothing flashy or over the top. Just the two of us and a promise for our future together. When Haley said yes, I felt like my whole life finally made sense. The next step was telling my family. I was excited to share our news, thinking they'd want to celebrate with us. I had no idea what I was walking into. Before I continue, please let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. And make sure to click on the like and subscribe button. I called my parents the next morning to share the news. My mother Ivy answered the phone with her usual rushed tone. She's 55 and has always been the type of person who cares deeply about appearances and what other people think. "Mom, I have amazing news," I said, barely able to contain my excitement. "Haley and I got engaged last night." There was a pause. Then, "Oh, that's nice, honey. Congratulations." Her voice sounded distracted, like she was doing something else while talking to me. "Did you hear about your sister's promotion at work?" Before I could respond, she continued talking about Mavis's latest achievement. "My sister Mavis is 28, 4 years younger than me, and she's always been the golden child in our family. Everything she does is celebrated, while my accomplishments are barely acknowledged." When I finally got a chance to speak again, I told her about our plans for an engagement party. "We're thinking about having it next month. Something nice for our friends and family." "That sounds lovely, dear," Mom replied absently. "Oh, by the way, Mavis's birthday is coming up too. We should coordinate so we don't have any conflicts." I should have seen the warning signs right then. Later that week, I drove to my parents' house to discuss the engagement party in person. My father Grant was there too. He's 58, a stern man who's always preferred avoiding conflict over addressing problems. He congratulated me with a firm handshake and a smile that seemed genuine. But as soon as I started talking about our celebration plans, Mom kept steering the conversation back to Mavis. "You know, your sister has been working so hard lately. This birthday is really important to her. She's been talking about having a big celebration." "That's great," I said. "But we're talking about my engagement party right now." Of course, Mom said quickly. "It's just that 28 is such a special age, and she's been hinting about wanting something really memorable this year." Malvis walked in during our conversation, and I watched my parents' faces light up in a way they never did for me. She barely glanced at me before launching into a detailed story about her day at work. When I mentioned the engagement again, she offered a quick congrats without looking up from her phone. The whole evening felt like I was invisible in my own family's house. The following Monday, I found the perfect venue for our engagement party. Octavia Brandt owns a historic garden hall called Willowmere Estate. It's this beautiful old building surrounded by gardens, exactly the kind of place Haley and I had dreamed about for our celebration. The venue was expensive, but I'd been saving money for months. I wanted our engagement party to be special, something that would show Haley how much she meant to me and how serious I was about our future together. Octavia was professional and warm. She showed me around the property, explaining all the details about catering options, decoration possibilities, and timing. The deposit was substantial, almost $2,000, but I paid it gladly. "I'll need the final guest count 2 weeks before the event," Octavia explained as we finalized the paperwork. "And all payments must be completed 1 week prior." I signed the contract feeling proud and excited. This was going to be perfect. Haley deserved a celebration that matched how special she was, and I was finally going to give her exactly that. I couldn't wait to surprise her with the news about the venue. 2 weeks later, I got a call that changed everything. It was Octavia from Willowmere Estate, and she sounded confused. "Hello, Cuthbert. I have a question about your event. I just received a call from someone claiming to represent your family about changing the party theme. They want to redecorate for a birthday celebration instead of an engagement party." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "A woman called saying she was your mother. She said there had been a change of plans and that the party was now for your sister's birthday. She wanted to know about birthday-themed decorations and a different catering menu." I felt like I couldn't breathe. Did you make any changes? No, of course not. The contract is in your name, and only you can authorize modifications. But I wanted to check with you first. I thanked Octavia and hung up, my hands shaking with anger. My family had tried to take over my engagement party venue for Malvis's birthday. They hadn't even asked me. They'd just assumed they could change everything without my permission. This wasn't just disrespectful. This was a complete betrayal of everything that should matter in a family. When I told Haley what had happened, I watched her face transform from confusion to fury. We were sitting in our apartment, and she stood up so quickly that her chair nearly fell over. They did what? She said, her voice getting louder with each word. Cuthbert, please tell me you're not going to let them get away with this. I tried to explain that maybe there had been a misunderstanding, that perhaps we could work something out. But Haley wasn't having any of it. This isn't a misunderstanding, she said, pacing around our living room. This is your family showing you exactly how much they respect you and our relationship. And the answer is not at all. She stopped pacing and looked directly at me. I love you, Cuthbert, but I will not marry into a family that treats you like you don't matter. If you can't stand up for yourself, how can I trust you to stand up for us? Her words hit me like a punch to the stomach because I knew she was right. My family had always treated me this way, and I'd always just accepted it. But this time was different. This time they'd crossed a line that affected Haley too. The next day, I drove to my parents' house for a confrontation I should have had years earlier. Mom was in the kitchen when I arrived, acting like nothing had happened. Oh, hi honey, she said cheerfully. I was just planning the menu for Mavis's party. Did you know Willowmere Estate has excellent catering options? Mom, that's my venue, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I paid for that space for my engagement party. She waved her hand dismissively. Well, we can share it. Mavis's birthday is the same weekend anyway. It makes sense to combine the celebrations. No, I said firmly. It doesn't make sense. It's my engagement party. Dad walked into the kitchen during our conversation. When I explained the situation to him, he just shrugged. Son, your sister's birthday only happens once a year. You and Haley will have plenty of other chances to celebrate. I stared at both of them, finally seeing clearly how little my happiness meant to them. Mavis's birthday is more important right now, Mom added. She's been looking forward to this for months. That's when I realized nothing I said would change their minds. I called my best friend Cormac that evening, needing someone to talk to who would actually listen. Cormac Ridley has been my closest friend since college. He's 33, sarcastic, but incredibly loyal. He's also never been afraid to tell me hard truths about my family. Let me get this straight, Cormac said after I explained everything. Your parents tried to steal your engagement party venue for Princess Malvis's birthday bash? Don't call her that, I said automatically. Dude, wake up. She is the princess in your family, and you're the forgotten middle child who pays for everything and gets nothing in return. His voice was sharp with frustration. This isn't new, Cuthbert. Remember your college graduation? They missed it because Mavis had a dance recital. He was right. There have been countless examples over the years. Family dinners where my achievements were barely mentioned, while Mavis's smallest accomplishments were celebrated for hours. Holidays where my preferences were ignored while everything revolved around what Mavis wanted. Your parents have trained you to accept scraps, Cormac continued. But Haley deserves better than that. And honestly, so do you. For the first time in my life, I was ready to stop accepting scraps. Haley and I had a serious conversation that weekend about our future. We were walking through the park near our apartment, the same place where I'd first told her I loved her. I need you to understand something, she said, stopping by the fountain where we'd shared our first kiss. I'm not giving you an ultimatum because I want to control you. I'm giving you one because I need to know who I'm marrying. She took my hands and looked directly into my eyes. If you marry me while letting your family treat you like garbage, then you're choosing them over us every single day. I won't live like that. What are you saying? I asked, though I already knew. I'm saying you need to decide. Either you stand up to your family and show them that I matter to you, or we need to seriously reconsider whether we're right for each other. The thought of losing Haley was unbearable. She was the best thing that had ever happened to me, and I'd been too scared to fight for what we deserved. That night, I made a decision. I was going to fight back, not with anger or shouting, but with careful planning and precision. I spent the next few days thinking about how to handle the situation. I'd never been the type of person to cause drama or make scenes, but I'd also never been pushed this far before. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that my family had gotten away with treating me poorly because I'd never given them any consequences. They knew I would always back down, always choose peace over standing up for myself. But this time was different. This time they'd hurt Haley too, and that was something I couldn't forgive or forget. I started making phone calls and doing research. If my family wanted to play games with my engagement party, then I was going to make sure I knew all the rules better than they did. Cormac came over that evening to help me plan. Finally, he said when I explained my intentions, "I've been waiting years for you to grow a backbone. This isn't about revenge," I told him. "This is about respect." "Sometimes," Cormac replied, "those are the same thing." The first step was calling Octavia at Willowmere Estate to clarify exactly what my rights were as the person who'd signed the contract and paid the deposit. "I need to understand something," I told her during our phone call. "If someone else wants to use the venue I've booked, what's the process for that?" Octavia was very clear. "The contract is in your name, Cuthbert. Only you can authorize any changes to the event. If someone else wants to use that date, they would need to book their own separate venue or get written permission from you to modify your existing booking. And if they showed up expecting to use the venue without my permission, they would be turned away," she said firmly. "We take our contracts very seriously here." This was exactly what I needed to hear. My family had assumed they could just take over because they'd always been able to take everything else from me. But this time, the law was on my side. "One more question," I said. "If I wanted to change some of the details about my event, like the guest list or the theme decorations, how much notice do you need?" "As long as we have a week's notice, we can accommodate most reasonable changes." Perfect. My plan was starting to come together. Over the next few days, I did something I'd never done before. I started documenting everything. Every phone call from my family, every assumption they made about taking over my venue, every dismissive comment about my engagement. I also started reaching out to relatives and family friends who'd received invitations to what they thought was Mavis's birthday party. Most of them were confused about the details and happy to hear from me directly. "I just want to clarify something about the party next month," I would say. "It's actually my engagement celebration to Haley. Mavis's birthday will be celebrated separately." Some relatives were surprised. A few admitted they'd thought it was strange that Mavis would have such an elaborate party at such an expensive venue. They'd assumed our parents were paying for everything. When I explained that I'd booked and paid for the venue myself, several family members expressed shock. They had no idea that Mavis's party was supposed to be happening at my expense. These conversations gave me something I'd never had before, allies who understood exactly what was happening. Meanwhile, I kept up appearances with my immediate family. When Mom called to discuss party details, I stayed calm and pleasant. "Of course I want Malvis to have a wonderful birthday," I told her. "Family is the most important thing." I could hear the relief in her voice. She'd been expecting me to fight harder, and my apparent cooperation made her think she'd won. "I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this," she said. "Mavis has been so excited about the party. She's even bought a special dress for the occasion." "I'm sure it will be a memorable evening," I replied. And I meant every word, just not in the way she thought. Malvis called me a few days later, which was unusual since we barely talked unless we had to. "Thanks for letting me use your venue," she said, though she didn't sound particularly grateful. "I promise it'll be an amazing party. I'm sure it will be exactly what everyone deserves," I told her. She was too focused on herself to notice the edge in my voice. 2 weeks before the event, I started making strategic changes to the guest list. I contacted relatives, family friends, and even some of my professional colleagues who'd received birthday party invitations. "I have an important update about the event next month," I would tell them. "There's been a change of plans. It's actually going to be an engagement celebration for Haley and me. I hope you can still join us for this special occasion." Most people were happy to celebrate our engagement instead of Mavis's birthday. A few mentioned that they'd brought engagement gifts anyway, thinking it was strange to receive a birthday party invitation so close to our engagement announcement. I also reached out to Haley's family and friends, many of whom hadn't been included in Malvis's birthday invitation list. They deserved to be part of our celebration, and I wanted to make sure they knew they were welcome. By the time I was finished, the guest list looked very different from what my family was expecting. But they had no idea because they'd never asked for my input on invitations to my own venue. Haley was initially worried about my plan. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked. "Once you make this move, there's no going back with your family." There's already no going back, I replied. They made that choice when they decided my engagement didn't matter. She helped me prepare a social media announcement that we planned to post the morning of the event. It was simple and elegant, just like Haley herself. Cuthbert and I are excited to celebrate our engagement with family and friends at Willowmere Estate today. Thank you to everyone who will be joining us for this special milestone in our lives together. We also prepared printed programs explaining the significance of the day, including a timeline of our relationship and gratitude for the people who'd supported us. Everything was ready. After years of being overlooked and dismissed, I was finally going to show my family that actions have consequences. The morning of the event, I woke up feeling nervous but determined. The day of the party arrived with perfect weather. Sunny skies, gentle breeze, and the gardens at Willowmere Estate looked absolutely beautiful. I arrived early to oversee the final preparations. Octavia had outdone herself with the decorations. Elegant white and gold flowers everywhere, string lights creating a romantic atmosphere, and a beautiful arch where Haley and I would stand for photos. It looked like an engagement party, because that's exactly what it was. Around noon, I started getting text messages from relatives asking about the change in decorations. Word was spreading quickly that something was different from what they'd expected. My phone buzzed with a call from Mom. Cuthbert, there seems to be some confusion at the venue. The decorations are all wrong for Mavis's birthday. Actually, I said calmly, the decorations are perfect for my engagement party. There was a long silence. What do you mean? I mean, this is my engagement celebration, just like I originally planned. The venue is booked in my name, paid for with my money, for my event. I could hear her calling for Dad in the background. An hour before the party was supposed to start, Mavis arrived at the venue wearing a stunning gold dress that was clearly meant to make her the center of attention at her birthday celebration. She walked into the main hall and stopped dead when she saw the engagement decorations and the large banner that read, "Congratulations, Cuthbert and Haley." "What is this?" she demanded, marching up to me. "Where are my birthday decorations?" "These are the decorations for my engagement party," I explained calmly. "The party I booked, paid for, and planned." Her face turned red with anger. "But Mom said this was my birthday party. She promised me this venue." "Mom doesn't have the authority to promise you something that belongs to me," I replied. "This has always been my engagement celebration." Mavis looked around desperately, as if the birthday decorations might suddenly appear. When they didn't, she pulled out her phone and started calling Mom frantically. I watched her realize that all her plans for her elaborate birthday celebration were falling apart, and I felt something I'd never experienced before, the satisfaction of standing up for myself. Guests started arriving around 5 o'clock, and their reactions were exactly what I'd expected. Most of the family members looked confused when they saw the engagement decorations instead of birthday party setup. Aunt Clara approached me first. "Cuthbert, I thought this was Mavis's birthday party." "No," I said with a smile. "This is my engagement celebration with Haley. I'm so glad you could join us for this special day." She looked relieved. "Oh good. I brought an engagement gift anyway because it seemed strange to celebrate Mavis's birthday so soon after your engagement announcement. This makes much more sense." Similar conversations happened throughout the first hour. Relatives and family friends expressed confusion about the birthday party invitations they'd received, but genuine happiness about celebrating our engagement instead. Cormac arrived with a huge grin on his face. "This is beautiful, man. Haley looks absolutely stunning, and you look happier than I've seen you in years." Haley did look incredible in her navy blue dress, greeting guests with grace and elegance. She was handling the situation perfectly, acting like this had always been the plan. Several relatives commented on how lovely she was and how lucky I was to have found her. Mavis spent the first hour of the party sulking in a corner, texting furiously and occasionally glaring at me across the room. But as more guests arrived and it became clear that this was definitely an engagement celebration, her anger reached a boiling point. She marched across the room during the cocktail hour, her gold dress sparkling under the lights, and confronted me in front of everyone. "This is supposed to be my day," she shouted loud enough for the entire room to hear. "You ruined everything. Mom promised me this venue for my birthday." The conversations around us stopped as people turned to watch the drama unfold. "Mavis," I said calmly, "this venue was always booked for my engagement party. I paid for it. I planned it, and I invited everyone here to celebrate with Haley and me. But what about my birthday? She demanded, tears starting to form in her eyes. Your birthday is important, I replied, but not more important than my engagement, not more important than my happiness, and certainly not more important than respecting the money I worked hard to earn for this celebration. By now, everyone at the party was listening to our conversation, including several relatives who were clearly hearing the full story for the first time. I walked over to where the microphone was set up for toasts and decided it was time to address everyone directly. The room fell silent as I tapped the microphone to get everyone's attention. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here to celebrate this incredibly important day for Haley and me. I looked out at the crowd, seeing family members who'd never truly listened to me before, all focused on what I was about to say. Some of you may be confused about the invitations you received or the expectations you had for tonight. I want to clarify something important. This venue was booked and paid for by me for my engagement celebration with Haley. I paused, letting that sink in before continuing. For too many years, I've allowed my achievements and important moments to be overshadowed or ignored. I've accepted being treated as less important than other family members. But this day, this celebration of my future with the woman I love, is too important to compromise on. Several relatives nodded in agreement, and I saw a few people looking pointedly at my parents. Today is about choosing to value ourselves and the people who truly support us. It's about respect, boundaries, and building the kind of family we want to have. After my speech, the atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically. I watched my parents trying to manage the situation, but it was clear that many of our relatives were seeing the family dynamics in a completely new light. Several cousins approached me privately to share their own stories about feeling overlooked in favor of golden child siblings. Aunt Clara pulled me aside to tell me she'd always noticed how differently my parents treated Mavis and me. Your father's brother went through the same thing, she confided. Always in his older brother's shadow, never getting the recognition he deserved. I'm proud of you for finally standing up for yourself. Uncle Thomas, Dad's business partner, shook my hand firmly. That took courage, son. Sometimes the family needs to hear hard truths, even if they don't want to listen. Mom and Dad stood together near the entrance, looking uncomfortable and whispering to each other. They were clearly realizing that their favoritism toward Mavis hadn't been as subtle as they'd thought. Meanwhile, Mavis continued to sulk, but now she looked more embarrassed than angry. Several guests had tried to include her in conversations, but she was too focused on her disappointment to engage gracefully. The party was turning out exactly as I'd hoped, a genuine celebration of Haley and our future together. Haley gave a toast later in the evening that left everyone speechless. She stood up gracefully, champagne glass in hand, and looked around the room with confidence. I want to thank everyone who's here tonight to celebrate with us. When Cuthbert and I decided to get married, we knew we weren't just choosing each other. We were choosing to build a life surrounded by people who respect us, support us, and genuinely care about our happiness. She paused, her eyes meeting mine across the room. Real family isn't just about blood relations. It's about the people who show up for your important moments, who celebrate your successes without jealousy, and who treat you with the dignity you deserve. Several people raised their glasses in agreement. Tonight, we're surrounded by our real family. The people who understand that love isn't a competition, that there's enough joy to go around for everyone, and that respect is the foundation of any meaningful relationship. She raised her glass higher. Here's to choosing the people who choose you back. Here's to boundaries, respect, and building the life you actually want. And here's to never settling for less than you deserve. The room erupted in applause and cheers. It was the perfect toast for the perfect evening. By 8 o'clock, it was clear that Mavis had reached her limit. She stood up abruptly from the corner where she'd been sitting and announced loudly that she was leaving. "This is ridiculous," she declared. "I can't believe you did this to me on my birthday week." Mom immediately jumped up to follow her. "Mavis, wait. Let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," Mavis replied dramatically. "My own brother ruined my birthday party for his stupid engagement." She stormed toward the exit, her gold dress trailing behind her. Mom hurried after her, throwing apologetic glances back at the remaining guests. Dad lingered near the door, looking torn between following his wife and daughter or staying at the party. For a moment, I thought he might come over to talk to me. Instead, He gave me a small nod that might have been approval or resignation, and then walked out after them. The truth is, I felt relieved when they left. Without their negative energy, the celebration became even more joyful and authentic. Cormac raised his beer in my direction. And just like that, the problem solved itself. The rest of the evening was magical. Without the drama and tension from my immediate family, everyone relaxed and enjoyed themselves completely. Great Aunt Helen, who's 92 and rarely speaks at family gatherings, pulled me aside to share a story about her own wedding 65 years ago. My sister tried to upstage my wedding by announcing her pregnancy at the reception, she told me with a mischievous smile. Some things never change in families. But you handled this with much more class than I did. Uncle Thomas gave a heartfelt toast about watching me grow up into a man of integrity and principle. Several cousins shared funny stories about Haley and me from family gatherings over the past 2 years. By the end of the night, Haley and I felt truly celebrated and supported by the people who mattered most. As we were leaving, Octavia approached us with a smile. That was one of the most elegant engagement parties I've ever hosted. You two handled a difficult situation with incredible grace. We drove home that night feeling closer than ever, knowing we'd stood up for our relationship and our future together. 3 weeks later, I was scrolling through social media when I noticed that Mavis had posted a series of photos from what appeared to be a small birthday dinner at a restaurant. The photos showed her looking sulky and disappointed, with captions about how some people don't understand the importance of family loyalty. She'd clearly never gotten over losing her elaborate venue celebration. Meanwhile, Haley and I had been busy settling into our new apartment and planning our actual wedding. We'd received congratulation cards from dozens of relatives who'd attended the engagement party, many including personal notes about how much they'd enjoyed the evening. Aunt Clara sent flowers with a note that said, "Thank you for reminding all of us what real family looks like." Uncle Thomas called to ask if he could give a toast at our wedding, something that meant more to me than he could possibly know. Mom had sent a brief text message a week after the party. "We need to talk when you're ready." I wasn't ready yet, and I might not be for a long time. Dad had called once, but I'd let it go to voicemail. His message was short. "I'm proud of how you handled yourself. Call me when you want to." That evening, Haley and I hosted a small dinner party at our new place. Just Cormac, a few close friends, and some of the relatives who'd become our chosen family. As I looked around our dining room table at people who genuinely cared about us, I realized something important. I'd spent years trying to earn love and respect from people who were never going to give it to me. But I'd also learned that there are people in this world who will value you exactly as you are. People who will celebrate your successes, support your dreams, and treat you with the dignity you deserve. Sometimes the best thing you can do is stop chasing after the family you wish you had and start building the family you actually want. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content about standing up for yourself, setting boundaries, and choosing the people who choose you back.